So, without further ado, I can see Mr. Boyles is just eager to share once again.
We are ready, sir.
Okay. I hope the tax reduction isn't too low this year. Mr. Zimbar, take us away.
Like a hit?
Oh, wait a minute. I have to call this meeting to order. This is the City of Council workshop at 205 Main Street, Hardyville, South Carolina, Tuesday, March 28th, 2023, and very near 3 o'clock. Now you can go.
Now I can go. Thank you. Good afternoon. It's always a pleasure coming before you, especially on budget time, right? Yes, it is. But before we start there, I did get a chance to talk to the mayor. I know it's very important that the council wants to meet with the South Carolina DOT. And we do have a date. Could everybody check their calendars if they're available? April 17th. April 17th. So in the afternoon, yes. Later in the afternoon, mid-late afternoon, if you're available, if we can try to confirm that. So I know we want to understand their process and their.
We're meeting here.
Yes, sir.
Workshop, is that what I heard?
Yes, absolutely. So if we can, we'll pen that in. If everybody can get back with me just to confirm, that would be wonderful.
What time?
Maybe like a 3 o'clock, John. Would that be good for you? Wonderful. Okay. All right, let me start out here. So, you know me, I always have some philosophical comments, and I'm going to share those. Some might be insightful, some might not be as much, but this is my 8th city budget. So I guess I think our goal has been, or any goal should be, that you have a budget that's user-friendly, readable, understandable, and then the general public can pick it up and at least have a clue on what's going on and where their tax money is being spent and, you know, how fiscally responsible we are. So I think we should all be proud, because I think we do. And I think we all know that we were the last year the Triple Crown winner for GFOA awards, which, well, how many? 4 in South Carolina? 8 in South Carolina, but we were by far the smallest, and there's not very many in the U.S. So we got a lot to be proud of on how we prepare our documents, how we present our documents. So that's a really good thing, and I think we all should be proud of that. Cities also, I think you'll find, and if you had a chance to look at the brief presentation, is that the city's in a very good financial position. And I don't think it was done by happenstance. It wasn't done by luck. I mean, obviously those things all play into it, but I think, you know, we have been a very good financial steward of planning, growth, and development, and how we expend our resources and how we improve the community. I think what we're going to try to propose is we keep doing that. You know, something works. Hopefully you keep doing that instead of doing something different. So that's what we're going to propose today. And then this isn't the city manager's budget. This isn't the council's budget. This is all of our budget. So, you know, our collective efforts, more and more people are getting involved every year. As I, you know, move on in my tenure here, I'm doing less of the heavy lifting, which is great because I have people that are really stepping up. So I'm really fortunate that we have a lot of good people here that are really going above and beyond. And I just want to thank everybody that's been involved, because it's a lot of hard work, and I think the council recognizes on just the sheer effort and, you know, it takes. And I always got to give John a lot of credit, because he puts up with a lot of my stuff. We'll say, put it that way. That John, not this John. I'm like the proud papa, because he's like the kid learning all the time. So sometimes he's, you know, I'm very hard on John, and I think he gets it, but he's definitely improving, and he's really stepped up his game. So I really wanted to thank him for doing all that. All right. Enough philosophizing, and let's get on with the presentation. All right, go ahead, John.
John, well, you didn't tell me that.
That was my fault. My fault. I had the controller. I didn't do that on purpose either, John. All right, we're going to quickly go through budget calendar, overview, staffing. We want to really give council an update on the enterprise fleet management system. Kind of some disappointing overall, and we want to move in a different direction, but we want to give the council on what's going on in that. talk about briefly the operating budget, debt service, capital improvement, our fund balance, our proposed and projected fund balance, and obviously the big thing that I really like to get, if we can get some feedback, millage rate, and then next steps. So let's just quickly move on. Here's a budget calendar. I won't have to review that, but we are in that fourth check mark. I mean, we probably, in hindsight, and if we had all had more time and effort and unlimited time, we probably could have held this maybe a few weeks earlier. But if you look at what we've done historically, we're kind of ahead of the game. So really like our goal today is kind of tell the council where we're at, get feedback, and really have some discussion on millage rate. We can defer a lot of the discussions on the staffing and the CIP because we're going to really spend a lot of time on that when you actually get the document. But if we can just get some direction on where the council's feelings are relating to millage rate. So we'll take all the information that we get. So a week from this Thursday, you'll be getting the draft budget, and then we will try to hold those workshops, and maybe even in May we can have an adopted budget, which would probably be the earliest the city's ever done it. But so at least in my tenure, so that would be great. And then we start July 1st, the new fiscal year, which we all know. All right, let's move on to the second one. Okay, as I said, the city's really in a really good, strong financial position. The unappropriated general fund balance is really 3.8 million instead of 2.8 because we're proposing to use almost $1 million here coming up for the enterprise fleet system payoff. But the budget stabilization is the 20%, and you go next year based on what we're projecting, that'll rise almost 800,000 to meet the 20%. So we'd have the budget stabilization fund, which we all know is kind of the rainy day fund, unexpected shortfalls in revenue, hurricanes, natural disasters, unexpected stuff. We have $4.2 million just setting aside that we could use for things that we don't necessarily always plan for. Department heads, God bless them, they're all here. 54 new staff people they said we need, 54. So, you know, I'm a wants and needs guy. So we always go through the wants and needs, and their 54 positions would have totaled about almost $4.8 million, 4.8 additional dollars, not existing. I'm going to recommend, or we're going to recommend collectively, about 18 new positions. So that's about we'll just round it off, $1.3 million. Great news from the building and planning department. We expect that the building permit being very conservative, which is extremely surprising. We have not been impacted like other parts of the nation on permitting and building activity. We believe it's going to go up about 11%. So an additional $420,000 in new revenue, and then water and sewer fees increase by about 13%. So again, very, very good financial, robust permitting for next year. Okay. Let's see, 53 projects in you'll get the capital improvement plan. We really spent a lot of time on the capital improvement plan. You're going to see a lot of more descriptions, photographs, and how they tie back to the council's goals and objectives. So you said, here's the main 4 or 5 categories and how those projects tie back to that. But our initial CIP is about $151 million. And this year they suggested about $20 million, $20,604,219 to be exact. We're going to recommend with the proposed budget about 33 projects, almost $12 million. And then obviously this is the main talking point. We're going to obviously try to convince the council that we should maintain the current millage rates to be able to, you know, keep moving forward and provide all the necessary resources for our community. But that's obviously completely up to the council in deciding how you want to proceed on the millage rate. Go ahead. Staffing request. And I know you have this, but here's down 54 staffing positions that were requested. I'm not going to go through them all. And then you can see at the bottom part of that slide, which I know you have this in front of you, approximately 18 positions. Some are part-time and some are, you know, obviously full-time equivalents. So we will present all those and the reasons why as part of the budget process. Go ahead. And then here's kind of for the last several years, the full-time equivalents by departments. Seeing going back a few years, we were at about 99 full-time equivalents, and based on our proposed budget, which we'll be receiving here, as I said, a week from Thursday, the number will increase to 156.5 full-time equivalents. Again, growing community, trying to meet those needs and demands of our growing population. Go ahead. All right, so I did tell you this is a tag team event. So Mr. John, he was pretty, I was surprised. He was very excited to make his presentation today. So go ahead, John.
You shouldn't be surprised. It's always exciting to be here. So, in the the FY22 budget, we came to council and we said we thought we had found a partner to help us better manage our fleet acquisition and our fleet maintenance. We currently have 26 vehicles that we have leased through Enterprise. Long story short, it's just not working like we'd hoped. For a variety of reasons, we feel like we're just not getting the service that we should. And a key piece of it is when we needed more vehicles, Enterprise couldn't find them anywhere for their whole grandiose network. They could not find vehicles for us, so we had to resort to purchasing from one of our local dealerships anyway. So if we have to work through them and then we have to work it on our own, why would we want to pay a administrative fee and all the process to do that? The other thing is, when we did Enterprise, one of the things that was important to the council members was that our local maintenance shops had a shot at the business. Participating in Enterprise's maintenance program was just an undue burden to them, and it never really worked well. So as it turned out, this money-saving, time-saving thing that we got into, and again, Rhett and I were the ones that really pushed this. Knowing what we knew then, I would push it again. But what we knew and what we found out are not the same things. So, like I say, the maintenance program that was an issue that hadn't really worked out. So it's just not meeting our needs. The fourth to the last bullet there just says it's not meeting our needs. So we're pursuing what it would look like if we bought out the balance on those 26 vehicles. And if we bought it out at the end of March, it would be $1,016,000 for the 26 vehicles. And so since we're effectively having to go back to buying them anyway, we're looking to, of course, not pursue Enterprise any further, but then also just buy our way out of it and be done with it.
So John, there's the 26 vehicles to buy them and own them would be $1 million.
Yes, sir.
So that's $50,000 car, roughly, for used cars.
Well, they're not. Short answer, yes, sir, is yes. But a lot of those vehicles have the aftermarket equipment that we have to upfit them with police and fire and all of those things. So that's been folded in there.
Yes.
John, is that, page 16, is that considered like, a complete wash, a complete loss, or is that not necessarily the case? Is it kind of equal out over time, or?
We could continue to pay them.
No, I'm telling you, if you were to pay the whatever and buy them out, is that gonna be kind of like a loss to the city, or will it not be that much of a loss to the city in the long run? I guess what I'm asking.
We are probably going to come out ahead a little bit, just because if anybody's looked for a vehicle recently, new car prices are so high, but compared to a used car price, you might as well buy the new. So we have built up some equity, even though some of these vehicles we've had for 18 months or less.
Let me ask on your last board, if I may.
Huh?
it didn't work with Enterprise.
Correct.
Enterprise isn't the only folks that do this kind of stuff, and we're thinking about doing it ourselves. As you're saying there, are you going to consider looking other sources just to make sure that to take it on ourselves means time from you or time from your staff and
I
what
haven't
that
looked at
translates out to?
And I'm not aware that anybody else in the city's looked at that. So no, we have not.
Do you think it would be a good idea to do that?
Well, it could, but when we were looking to make this jump, we went with Enterprise because they had shown themselves to be head and shoulders above some of their other competitors.
On paper.
Yeah, exactly.
If they did it right.
And there's a little bit of a, once bitten, twice shy kind of thing here.
Yeah, I know
Are
what
there
you're
other
saying.
vendors, the other municipalities or county governments use
Even today, yeah.
this type of agreement? Do they use?
Just a couple of things. So remember, this was kind of like not a lease purchase program. This was a leasing program.
At least.
So to answer John's question, what we did and what we were sold, which was a good concept, is you leased a vehicle over a certain period of time, and when you got to the end of the 2 to 5 years, we got a new vehicle. We never owned the vehicle versus what we did in the past. We went out and got a 5-year, 3-year bank loan. We paid 3 years. At the end of the year, at the end of the term, we got the vehicle, salvage value, moved to other departments, and we owned it. We had an asset. Well, with this enterprise system, which was a good concept, we'd always have new vehicles, but we never owned anything. So that $1 million, John, is basically paying off those 1 year to 1.5 year old vehicles and getting a vehicle that we're probably going to have anywhere from 3 to 10 years and getting out of the program. I think your question, there are other programs we can look at. The other thing we're really going to look at next year is formalizing our fleet management system. So now we have a public works employees that are certified to do, maintenance or repair on vehicles, and doing more formalized inventory system, a fleet management system, a procurement system, instead of everybody doing something, every department doing their own thing, having a more formalized system. And we're getting to the point now where we need kind of a person that's a good part of their time is managing the fleet.
Are all 26 of the vehicles in the shape that makes it worth paying $1,016,000?
Yes, they're all new. They're all new vehicles.
Also, Mike, just
Oh, please, it's a workshop, so everybody jump in.
on the scale, I guess, weighing it out, is it more cost effective to start taking it over ourselves versus going to another?
Well, we probably need to have that analysis, John, and that's a good point. My thinking is I've been in other where we've had our own motor pools, which is the fleet management, the fleet maintenance, the fleet procurement. That's all done by a department instead of multiple people, or again, in this case, paying some other vendor to do it. We probably need to have that serious analysis. My gut feeling is I think we should be doing that all internally. Yep. And you got to give, I got to give, we have, OC Welch, again, interesting guy, but I mean, he has stepped up to the plate. The guy is a, brilliant businessman. He purchased, I don't know how many hundreds of vehicles. And when we went to Enterprise, which we thought their vast network of dealers and suppliers, they couldn't get any vehicles. Jody, now is his best buddy. She calls him up, police vehicle. I mean, any vehicle we want, he's got it, and he gives us a good deal. I mean, a guy in our own town where we couldn't go anyplace else to find a vehicle. So, I mean, we have to give him a lot of credit, and he's really, stepped up and helped the city when we really needed it.
Leaving this program 3 to 4 years down the road as these vehicles are at the end of their lifespan, the money we spend will be generally kept here within our community dealerships right within here. And I'm all for that. I think it builds a lot more engagement and trust within the community. I'm all for buying this out. I do have a little bit of concern about we're going to have to form basically a motor pool to service all of these vehicles. There's going to be a cost involved with that. I mean, the equipment and everything on these newer vehicles is a little bit beyond. Somewhere I'd like to see that cost, what it's going to be
Absolutely.
to do that.
Yes, sir.
I have two questions.
Yes, sir.
Number one, this $1 million, do we have to write a check
Do we have to write a check?
for $1 million?
Yes, we would have to do that.
We have to write a check for $1 million. That's a big check. And, okay. So where were we going to get the $1 million?
We, that's, I don't want to get out of order. We're going to address that down the road,
Okay.
if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
No, that's, it's a concern. I mean,
Understood.
this is,
We have to do.
we would not buy, on any budget year, would we buy 26 vehicles? We would not budget $1 million worth of vehicle
Correct.
purchase. So this is a big nut.
And this nut is really picking up what we got in the 22 and 23 budget years, fiscal years.
There's a lot of zeros.
A lot of zeros. Okay. Lead us on.
Okay, so if we go now to the operating budget, well, what we've summarized here is just, you see in the middle column of numbers there, we have the FY23 projected, where we think we're going to come out, and that we think the fund balance in the bottom there would be a $1,249,000 increase. And you see the next column where the department heads came to us with what we call their status quo budget, of what the premise of that being, what will it cost you to do what you're doing this year? Nothing more, no new tricks, no new stuff. That came out to be $1 million, just over $1 million more in expenses over revenues from what they proposed. And then over the last couple of weeks, as the city manager and the deputy city manager and I have worked with them, scrubbed the revenue numbers and the department numbers, we now have that as a just under $600,000 revenue over expenses.
So status quo meaning keeping everything the same and just the normal increase in cost of, is that what status quo means?
That's not necessarily how it was perceived as we reviewed it, but that was the premise. That was what we asked for. That was the premise.
So in order, let's just, so I want to make sure I understand it. Let's take the police department.
Okay?
Projected FY '23 is 3,000,006 and status quo is 5,000,001.
Yes, sir.
I'm getting confused with what status,
Yes, sir.
I'm getting confused with what status quo means. That's, is there,
If I could follow
is
through.
there $1.5 million worth of salary increases and whatever? How do we get $1.5 million increase, which is close to 50%, and that's status quo?
Let me work through that example.
Okay.
What we're projecting for police, I'm sure everyone's aware how difficult it is to hire a quality patrol officer and police staff. So throughout the year, Sam has, just not his fault as I perceive it, just through the nature of the game, game's not the right word, I apologize. But through the nature of the beast, he's had some lapsed salaries. So if you have a couple of positions open for a year, that adds up. So that's a large piece of it, is his staffing. He's been understaffed anywhere from 2 to 6 positions given at any given time. Yeah. So that's a large part of why the projection is under what we had budgeted for this year. And then,
Yes, you had budgeted, I see, 3.9,
correct.
and, but then we jump back to 22 is 3.1. That's a $2 million increase. And
Yes.
understandable, there's an increase in staffing and everything.
Mhm.
It's just it's a big number. That's, not saying that it's not needed, but it's a It's a big number.
So even if the police department, and I'm using this because I'm confused, I'm not trying to get anywhere. I'm trying to understand it. If the police department had met its approved budget of 3.9 million, it's still $1.2 million to be status quo. What's that $1.2 million status quo paying for? Is it salary increases, insurance? What, how does that make status
All
quo?
right, let me ask this. I told John when I come up here, he needs a little help. So let's just go through this real quick. And you guys know all this stuff. I don't want to. So look at the approved budget fiscal year 23. So that's what you approve, full staffing. So when we approve a budget, we're going to have, everybody's going to be here. No one's going to leave during the year. We're going to buy everything we said we're going to buy. We're going to, everything's going to work out like we think we're going to work out. Well, we all know best laid plans. So you adopted last year, $3,949,233. I'm talking about police specifically. We believe at the end of the year, based on not filling positions, not doing all the projects, not purchasing everything, overestimating some salaries and benefits, their department's going to be 3.63, so $300,000 less. Now, if you move to, and I'll just look at the city manager proposed budget. So if you look at 3.9 versus 5,050,000, that's a big number. But again, full employment, additional positions, we're adding on additional utilities. So again, everything as we've planned, if we spend every dollar that you appropriate, it's $5,050,000 versus last year, $3,950,000. Again, $1 million, another $1.1 million plus more for that full employment and everything else.
See, that's what I'm getting. That's
Exactly.
why the word status quo confused me.
It is.
It's not status quo. The 5 million includes new positions.
Right.
Okay, so the word status quo is what was throwing me off. Yeah.
So no longer are basically figuring that there's always going to be X amount of open positions.
Yep.
This budget shows full. Where
Yes.
the
And that's
past
what you always budget.
The
But
past ones might have anticipated
Exactly.
a little bit of,
And that's why you're going to find when John goes through
Okay.
comparing the revenues versus the expenses, generally, not always, but generally, revenues are always underestimated at the end of the year.
okay.
And expenses are also, revenues,
Now-
you have more revenues than expected and then less expenditures than you appropriate.
Okay, now-
That's the general rule.
Understand now. Thank
Okay.
you.
So
Okay.
Sam up to full staff now, or will be, is it gonna be full staff?
He's close and he's working hard to get there, sir.
No, sir, I'm still too short right now, sir.
But better than you were.
Yes, sir.
Sam, let me ask you a question while we're doing that. You're too short, and now we're looking at the projection of what you're going to be doing, not status quo, but the head count you'd like to get to. How many positions would that be in addition to the two?
Well, and we're asking, the city manager's letting me have 3 more persons,
All
sir.
right, good.
So basically, this budget,
5 new,
Three
5,
new and two, yeah.
yeah.
so we're looking at to fill 5 positions with this one, with this large number that we have here then.
Yes, that's a good way to look at it.
Okay. That puts it in perspective for me.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
One of the concerns I have when circumstances are such that you don't fill positions for a variety of reasons, then you get to the next year and you're filling positions, the capacity to assimilate those new people in terms of training, leadership, and you still have the same amount of supervisions. And again, I'm not picking on Sam. I'm just saying there's something that we don't always think about, and that's the capacity to assimilate this growth with the existing leadership that we have. And that's the danger of not filling things as we go, as we all know. Is that something, Sam, that I assume you take all that into
I think
consideration? What
about it
kind
every
of
day.
stress does that put on your leadership team?
Well, we think about it every day, sir. Every day I think about trying to get the right people for the right price and that kind of stuff like that. And unfortunately, right now, we're still struggling trying to find those people. But we'll
My
find them.
question is more, once you get them, what does that keep what additional burden, and I put that in to assimilate them, to bring them on board, make sure they're trained and not just hired and there's your booth over there, see you later, alligator.
Well, I feel like I got a good enough staff, and in this budget year, I'm asking for a deputy chief, so, to help with that process. So again, I think we're striving to move forward for the city in the best interest of the city. So the police department's doing what we can, but I'm not just gonna hire any person. We're gonna bend them and make sure that hopefully they're gonna be the right people. Again, it's always a roll of the dice every day that we try to hire somebody. We just interviewed one today, again, a young guy that lives here in the city of Hardyville, trying to see if we can give him an opportunity to come on board, and we'll see where it goes.
And again, my question isn't about getting them, it's once we get them, developing them and training them and retaining them
Yes, sir.
is critical. And it goes for everyone, not you, Sam, I'm not.
I feel,
certainly picking on you.
again, I feel like Hardyville's doing the best we can do. I really do, and unfortunately, some people want to stay and some people don't want to stay.
I hear you.
And again, I try to interview everyone that's wanting to leave and try to find the reasons why they want to leave, and if we did something wrong, or could we change the way we did something or handle something to make it better for them to stay.
I hear
But
you.
again, it's always a roll of the dice, sir.
I get you.
Chief, I have one question. I know you've expressed in the past, with the proper staffing, you would like to see go to a zone type for the city. Will this added staffing here help provide that?
It's getting me closer. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I feel like we're moving in the right direction.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
One other, question, and I may be getting ahead of the game, John, if I'm throwing you off your track. But in that 1 million dollar increase, or Mike, whatever, is that including a raise because Sam just hit a key point, you got to be able to, it's like finding hen's teeth to get a good officer. You got to pay them, that's to stay. So that is including a raise too, right?
That is being addressed, yes, sir.
Okay. Good.
All right, John, fire away.
Okay, so we'll go, if we're good on that slide, we'll go to the next page. And this just shows, again, where we think we're going to project at the end of '23 with the fund balance, less the ARPA funds, and then the land acquisition and economic development funds. We still need to work through what we think that'll look like at the end of '24. And then you see the budget stabilization is $3,467,000, almost $468 for fiscal '23. But for '24, as the city managers alluded to earlier, it's going up another $700,000. So, or $600,000. And that's just a function of the more the budget grows, that 20% budget stabilization number for our disaster, should there be a hurricane or something, we want to have some money available, because we would certainly be reacting and addressing whatever the situation is on the ground, and it might be years or longer to get any kind of federal and state government reimbursement. So that's what we're trying to do with that budget stabilization. But to go back to the city manager's budget, we anticipate that at the end of this year, the general fund balance would be $2,262,000. And then again, taking out unspent ARPA funds, we would be looking for that number to be about $1,435,000. There might still be some refinement with all of the numbers in that far right column, but that's where we are right now as we bring this to you.
And the land acquisition fund, this subtracts the recent land purchases we made on White Hardy Boulevard and over at Randall.
It will. It will.
Those represent the current factors, right?
Yes.
We bought the property, that's the balance.
That's the balance.
John, again, he didn't
Right.
He needs to move all those figures over.
Yeah, we
Right,
need to
okay.
refine them for 23. and
Okay, I
then
just wanted to make sure
projections
that
for 24.
That is the
That-
balance, in other words.
that's the
okay.
balance.
Absolutely, and so we have one more lot, well, one more closing in the Commerce Park, 2 more lots to sell, so there'll be another, hopefully, 300,000. And then I'm proposing that the council in the next couple of weeks consider some other land purchase. So we'll talk about that next Thursday.
Yeah, I'm always anxious to not bums rush you, but I also am anxious to keep the rig rolling.
Keep rolling.
Okay. So our next thing is debt service, and this is a spreadsheet you've seen before. We're trying to be to routinize and standardize our position, our presentation, so that it becomes easier to follow. The yellow items you see for fiscal '24, you see the South State note with for City Hall. That will fall off the books. So that's 91,000, almost 92,000. That will fall off in fiscal '24. And then the 3 yellow blocks at the bottom shows the $85,000, which would be 1 year's cost for the police department renovation that we talked about at the last council meeting. And then for '24, we're proposing 2 borrowings. One is $764,000 as we purchase vehicles rather than go through enterprise to obtain them. And then we also anticipate a 20-year note for the $1.6 million renovation for Fire Station 82.
On the PD renovation, what was presented to us, I think at last meeting, was $1.5 million. You have $1 million here. So where's the other $500,000?
We come to you with 1.4.
Mayor, I think it was 1.4. There's about 400,000 of ARPA projects that were either came under budget or we're going to defer or not do. So that's the 400,000, give or take, for fixtures and the carport and the fencing and all the other stuff in there. So it'd only be about $1 million borrowing.
One other question.
Sure.
Regarding our debt. We have a legal limit that we can borrow, is that correct?
That is correct.
If we borrowed up to 100% of that legal limit, what would the number be?
I do not have that off the top of my head. I apologize, Mr. Mayor.
So your legal limit applies to your general obligation debt, and I think it's about 6 million right now.
Yeah,
But I
that's
don't,
8%.
yeah, I don't
8%,
believe,
right.
I don't believe they're proposing, you have other ways you can borrow things. So you can do installment purchase agreements. There are different ways to borrow where you don't have to use that GO obligation.
These would not go against that.
But this page shows, okay, so they're not all bank loans. I guess my question is, if you don't have it, have it for the next one.
Sure.
We have a certain amount of debt, and we have a certain number that's the legal limit. I would like to know those 2 numbers,
Absolutely. I can get
okay?
that. Yes, sir.
Looking at the debt service schedule, and I come back to that. Is the numbers to buy out that lease plugged in any place?
That's where we're getting there, sir.
All right.
It's a
You're
good,
scaring me.
good question, though.
You're scaring me.
Keep going?
Go right ahead.
Go right ahead. If we pause, nobody says anything, keep going before somebody thinks of something.
Okay, so now we're on to the capital improvement program. As Mr. Simbor indicated earlier, we have 53 projects were proposed by department heads, and he is recommending not all of those. And of course, you'll remember a couple years ago we started coming with, rather than just a 1-year snapshot of what we wanted to spend for capital, but a 5-year plan that does a number of things. One, it it really forces us to internally to consider and think about what it could look like in 5 years down the road. And then the second thing is it gives council the opportunity to say, okay, we might not be looking to buy or build this now, but in 25 or 26 or 27, we might. And then you guys, have that and can see that as we move it forward in our planning process. And then on the next slide, you see the first probably 2/3 of the projects. You see the general government projects. And then you also see the police and the fire and all that. If we're at a point today or later today or whatever, and we want to look at these individual projects, we are set up to be able to do that. But you can just see, if you go to the next page, you can see the for fiscal year 24, we were asking for $20.6 million in projects, and the city manager has approved just over half of that at 11.8 million. And some of the projects we moved from 24 to later years. Some of the projects we reduced in scope or magnitude so that we could get to that $11 million number.
I have one question though, it's just out of curiosity. What is traffic calming juju?
That is what we want to do back there is we want to have speed bumps and maybe just anything to slow people down back there. Not only for the citizens, but I know in the afternoons when we come here, if there's been a game or something back there,
Okay.
you got to be quick getting across there to get to your car.
It's just an odd
So,
title for it.
yeah. Okay. Any other?
Thought it was drugs or something, Steve? Who was-
No, I don't know. I've heard of bad juju and good juju, you know,
Oh, and
little superstition.
Mr. Mearsman, the Juju Hudson Park, we have a family that's been here for a number of
Okay.
years, and they gave us some money, and
Okay.
that park is the Juju Hudson Park, and
Okay, thank you.
we tend to internally, with no disrespect intended, tend to refer to that as Juju.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
I think the capital improvement plan is going to be a robust conversation.
Okay.
Because there's so many choices and everybody has, their favorite, so to speak. So I think it would be helpful to me that if we knew through some sort of indication here, what of that $11.8 million can be funded through development fees?
We have all of that.
Yes.
We have, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
No, that's fine.
When we got to that 11.8 million, we have not here for today, but we do have what's going to be DA fees, what's going to be general fund, all the different
What's gonna be
resources
debt.
that are available.
I think we need that
We
to,
will certainly have that.
right,
We can certainly have that.
thank you.
Anything more on capital improvement? Then we'll go to fund balance, if that's okay. And if anybody's interested, I can address the enterprise buyout as a part of this page.
I think you have our interest.
Okay. So just to start at the beginning, you see we've got almost $2.6 million as our projected fund balance at the end of this year. Or no, that was after the second budget amendment that was approved about a month ago. And then you see we have where we think we're going to have revenues that are going to be higher than we anticipated, and then some expenses that we think are going to be a little less than we anticipated. That gets us, instead of 2.5, almost 2.6 million, it gets us to 3.8 million as a preliminary projection of our FY23 fund balance. Then the question is, the big check, as the mayor said, and Mr. Mearsman has also indicated some interest in, how would we do that? Well, as with this fund balance, as it's increased to 3.8 million, we would spend that million to buy out enterprise, and then we would have 2.8 as our revised projection for the FY23 year-end fund balance. And then from there, we there's two things that are going to impact the fund balance for FY24. The first is the increase in budget stabilization, which we talked about previously. That's $789,000. And then the projected budget deficit from the operational standpoint is 593. So that leaves us, if you do the math, at a projected fund balance at the end of 24 of the 1,435,000. I just want to remind everybody that 1,435,000 does not consider the $4,205,000 that we have in budget stabilization. That is literally in a separate bank account. That is the proverbial rainy day fund. So my time is up.
No, not yet.
Not
Not up
yet.
yet.
Not yet. Don't go away.
Just a lot of commentary. So, and again, there's a lot of numbers here, and you're probably scratching your head and going like, "Oh, there's a lot of numbers." Let me just give you a couple points. So the 3.8 million, that's the surplus. That's the unallocated, unappropriated money. I mean, that's a good number. I mean, if you look at the general fund, what you budgeted, I mean, what you approved of the budget, that's 15%. 15% of what the general fund budget is, we have available funds, available resources left over. So if you go through the 1,016,000, and another, John hasn't brought it up yet, but if we wait till June, it's only like 900,000, Mr. Mayor. So instead of the $1 million check, it's only 1 zero less. So
I feel
only
so much
900,000.
I feel so much better.
I'm not going to do that.
Okay. But
It's
then,
better
so-
he said that than you, right?
right. So then if you go look at the 780, that's the 20%. I mean, so if you approve and appropriate that amount, that budget stabilization, that 20% goes up almost 800,000. Again, so that's the big number, 4.2 million. And then if you look again, and then I think the point of discussion, which we can have, not necessarily today, but we'll have in the very near future, is there's 600,000. So at this point, we're going to be presenting a budget. If everything stays status quo, ceteris paribus, if you say we're not going to do anything with the millage rate, we're going to have a $600,000 budget deficit. We've got 600,000 more expenses than what we're expecting in revenue. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, why the hell would you do that? Why wouldn't revenues are supposed to equal expenditures? My point is this: we're taking that unappropriated, unallocated money, which was the 2.8 million. We're going to spend 600,000. We're investing back in our community. We know we need more police. We need more fire. We want more public facilities. We got White Hardy Boulevard. We got the hub. We're investing in the community. So if you go down, when all's said and done, if you adopted everything I just said, which I know you probably won't, but if you did, we would still have about a 6% unallocated fund balance. 6% still is a pretty good number. 1.5 million that things come up during the year that we're not thinking about, or things happen. So that's kind of our logic here. So we go from a really robust number, 3.8 million at the end, June 30th. We believe we're going to have 3.8 million unallocated fund balance. If you approve this plan, it's going to drop substantially, but still a very comfortable number. Plus, remember the 4.2 million that we have in the budget stabilization fund.
There are those that are fiscally conservative that would say, and you don't need an answer to this,
Sure.
but just something to prepare, that would say, rather than spend more money than you have, to spend less money. One of those fiscally conservative people may be me, so you might want to prepare for that.
You had me pretty much convinced on that enterprise buyout until I start looking at these numbers. Because there's just, is now the right time to buy that out? What would it cost us to wait another year?
$250,000 to just
Well,
play it out another year.
$250,000 because if we take on this equipment ourselves and we start looking at maintenance ourselves, we're looking at added equipment. Mr. Brown, is your department, could you take over maintenance, all fleet maintenance for the city?
So we're looking into that right now, sir. We've got some pretty good talent right now, and we're looking at potentially hiring in new talent to come in and help us out with that.
We know we've got inventories we've got to provide for. We need new tools that's going to help us, accomplish this maintenance that's going to come through. we need to set up a program for that. So we're looking through all of that right now, getting prepared for that.
The reason I say that, I would feel a lot more comfortable knowing what those all expenses are going to be before we buy that out. It's just it's an unknown number right now.
John, let me add on to what Steve said. His question is the same one I had. But let's go back to Enterprise as a group. It's been a cost to us for their non-performance. It's been a lot of aggravation. It's been a lot of, we're
A lot
sitting,
of staff time, a
Yeah.
drain on staff time. Yes, sir.
and are we being too nice a guy when we're getting out of the contract? In other words, there's been a cost for their non-performance. And are we considering that when we're doing the buyout where we're saying it's $1 million, you've cost us about 250, I'm making numbers up, $100,000 in staff time for your non-performance. Therefore, you'll be getting a check for $900,000.
We are, I would say, in the infancy of hammering out their numbers, but certainly there's a piece of that. And if, when the time is right, we've already had engaged Ms. Maines to look at this as far as what the contract really calls for and all like that. But we've it was really just today that I got numbers, their end of month numbers through June. So that is something we're looking at. And if there is a way to try to claw back some of what it is they're asking for, we'll certainly look at that.
Well, don't use a felt hammer. Use a good old iron hammer when you're hammering
It looks
this out.
sweet, but she's tough, sir. So,
Go after them, because
yeah.
if we do this, any money that, like Bo is saying, any money that we save off of that can mean less expense for the maintenance and the equipment that we're going to need to maintain these vehicles when we do own them.
And Mr. Mearsman, I don't want to split hairs, but whether or not we buy out Enterprise or we ride it out for another year and spend that $250,000, the city's plan, absent other guidance, is we still intend to, going forward, not acquire vehicles through them. We intend to do them the old way. I just want to make sure that we were being clear.
Yeah, I was just now you made me feel a little bit better, that you're just in the negotiation stage with them. And so we could be looking at a number that could be a little less or significantly less than what we're looking at now.
That is always the goal. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
I may suggest that perhaps the questions that the council have about that would be more easily understood if at some point you explain to us exactly why Enterprise and where they failed, and what they're doing that has led you to this decision. You've told us that you're disappointed. Well, why? And maybe if we knew those particulars, that question wouldn't come up. So I would suggest that be part of the next presentation.
Man is ready to write you a novella, sir.
We're not bringing Jody up. We're not bringing her up.
No,
I can't do
no,
it.
well, I'm not saying it has to be done here
No.
now, but
But that's the discussion we need to have, Mr. Mayor, and then really, what's the buyout amount, if we can do it, and the whole fleet management system in general. Why don't we do that workshop here in the next couple months, because that'll be telling.
yeah, I
You
think
give us direction.
if we knew exactly how dire the situation is, maybe those questions they go away.
The other thing is when you go to buy fleets, we like the O.J. Welsh calling them up, but I would like to see a much more comprehensive plan. Not that you do it, but there's lots of places to buy cars from. I think the state probably does it in other places.
Yes.
Make sure that we exhaust every possibility so that we get the best price, because it's a pretty, that's not a small order of cars. It's not a big one, but it's.
Exactly. No, we look at state contract and we do talk to other dealers. Even state contract has struggled to get a commitment or have people honor their commitment, or they sold out whatever the allotment
Or,
was.
and regional buyers, that kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
okay.
will
I'm
do all
sure you do, but I'm just
Yeah.
thinking out loud with you on this one.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna keep. Oh, it's your turn?
Have they called Carol?
Yeah, I want to warm up.
All right, I know that, I probably, the mayor can do this slide, because this is his favorite slide that we use routinely. Go ahead.
The Harry E. Williams slide.
We need the theme song from Rocky.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me have the.
Wait a second. Yeah, this is where, and again, we all should be proud of this. I mean, this is a quite telling. I mean, even if you don't know anything about millage rates, you can see the city of Hardyville in comparison to the other. And again, I always say this, we're not throwing anybody under the bus, but I mean, the proof's in the pudding. So we've been very good financial stewards. We've been fortunate that our millage rate is growing, our assessed value, and we've been giving that back. I mean, we've been, providing for the employees, providing the resources, and taking care of our infrastructure, and we should be proud of that. So again, that's a major decision that the council needs to make. So John, go ahead. I know he's got some charts, and then what he's going to talk about is Beaufort County is doing they're in a reassessment, reappraisal year.
Yeah,
So
sir, that's actually the notes down there at the bottom.
That's right. So, but you're going to get into that process. So go ahead. Any questions on that?
Yes, I do. First of all, it is my understanding, because Jasper County breaks down its millage in a couple different ways. The Jasper County millage is 152. Wait, yeah, but
There may be
there's another 12 in, I think it's the emergency services or something.
Oh,
It comes out to 152.
We'll clean that up. It'll be 152 next time. you
Just
see.
I mean, don't take my word for it, but I
I
had
think that's
asked
right.
that question and I was told it was 152 from a very reliable source. So just double check that that's the right number.
I don't think you're wrong. I think there's
Okay.
some
All right.
columns here that we may not.
Because, that's very important because, we all, this is the one thing more than anything that this council has to reply to our next door neighbors. Okay? And, in a reassessment year that went up 14%, Jasper County only reduced their millage by 2, which is far less than 14%. And we get asked that question. So I want to make sure I give accurate answers. The other thing I'd like you to look up for the next time, when the school referendum came up and they visited, I asked the bond attorneys of the school, I said, when does the debt service millage come off? Because debt, in theory, gets paid off eventually. And the answer was, and this is from their attorney, oh, that'll never come off. Could you explain to us, not now, what is that? What's it paying for? And when is that debt going to be finished? Because people, I get asked all the time, what is that? Why does this is the debt that never ends? And I don't know how to answer it. So if you could educate me and the rest of the council, we could respond to our
We'll look
neighbors.
into.
Harry, I think that's that's the school's debt and the county courthouse. I think that's the 20.
No, I think no, the county courthouse that's the other 12 mills or something. That's
Okay.
that's
Well, then
their
that's
debt
just-
service is different than the school. And if you look at our tax
Okay.
bills, and I'll bring it in next time. I would like to understand those numbers better. And maybe you're right. I mean, I'd like to know.
And we'll
what
get the
it is.
breakdown, and that the school that didn't pass last year.
It didn't pass, so I thought, well,
It
then
should
that
be
should
rolling off.
disappear.
Exactly. So we'll have that for the next
but
meeting.
apparently we were paying a 1% sales tax and 25 mils in debt service. So I think I'd like to understand that. Thank you.
It is, okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah, everything.
I thought so.
The also, before we go on, but no, do the next slide first. I'm sorry.
Okay, so on this slide, again, it's something that we've presented the last couple of years. You see the value of a mill at different assessed values, and then we have used $3,381,300 as the median price. That's a number that is what we're told is the median value of a home. So the age-old question is, what is the value of a mill to a taxpayer, the average taxpayer? $15 a year. So it's just over $1 a month. And then what is the value of that same mill to the city? It's really about $85,000 if you look, and they're not going to walk together, but Beaufort and Jasper County, if you add those two numbers together, you're at $85,000. So one mill decrease or increase to the city is a net difference of $85,000.
John, in this whole millage area,
Mhm.
when you track it from where we were down to where we are now,
Mhm.
to me, thinking of taxpayers out there and all the waste in government and all the things that happen that aren't good, I think there's a story there to be told in terms of talking with Shelley and what's going on, and this has been a plan. And it's not so much bragging, but it's seeing government do something with the taxpayer in mind and getting that message out there so people understand it. And I think there's a better story to be told than we're telling. And if the millage is going up, we hear a lot about it. But I'm just thinking with Shelley and some of the things we do in Juan, looking directly to you on this, I think we need to do a better job in this area of getting the message out. I'm not picking on you, I'm just saying, I think we got a good story to tell here, and I don't think we're telling it.
Needs to be in a very understandable.
Yeah.
I can almost say that probably 90% of the people out there have no clue.
Your point's well taken,
The
Steve.
millage, all they look at is that number at the bottom.
Bottom line, that's
It's the bottom line, yeah.
But it's been a plan for a couple of years, and it's been a goal, and it's a good story, and
Yeah.
And this, I'm going to just make a statement which should come to no surprise to anyone. From the minute I decided to run for council in the summer of 2015, has always been my belief that you bring economic development so that you can improve your services and you can reward the citizens for that growth with tax reduction. And this is just me. Any budget that doesn't reduce the millage rate will get a no from me. And that's just a fact, not a threat, every council person has their own philosophy. That's mine. It's been mine since I came into the city. And I will vote no to any budget that doesn't decrease the millage rate.
Question, so if I'm reading this right, if we would decrease our millage 1 mil, it would cost us 81,000 in taxable revenue?
For Jasper County, and then another 2,700 for Beaufort County. And again, Beaufort County is going through an assessment thing, but
Yeah,
we believe that if I've been saying $85,000 is what that 1 mil is worth to the
the
city.
city, okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So I don't want to speak out of turn, but if there's guidance that the council has for what they want to see happen with the millage, as we, continue to refine this and scrub this.
My number's 2. David Spizzo's 4.
Sir, he said he would be happy once we got under 100, if you'll recall.
Before he passed, he remember, he passed in June.
I understand.
And, he wanted, he always wants less than I do. So if I want 2, David would want 4.
I'd like to see if you could massage the numbers to show us what that reflection would be. I can understand, 83,000 numbers on it, but I tend to agree with the mayor. Sometimes a small reduction, while in the scope of things, it's not a lot of money, but it sure looks good to the taxpayer.
I think we owe it to the taxpayer. Growth brings a lot of, it's not just all positive, it's negative. They have to put up with more traffic, a lot of things. And one of the reasons you have economic development, one, not the only one, is to reduce taxes. And, you know, I wish Jasper County would take the same posture. They always said that's why they're developing. But the taxpayer should benefit to some degree for all the, I don't know what your number is because I haven't seen it yet, but our revenue stream's going to increase by a couple of $1 million from development fees to increased taxes, property taxes. The least we could do is give $170,000 back to the taxpayer. And that again, that's my philosophy. It's the same one that's been there since I arrived here. And
When I ran for office, that was the big question, is reduce taxes, reduce taxes. The majority of the people, new folks coming into the community, they do not understand that about 70 cents out of every tax dollar goes to Jasper County. They're looking at the bottom line down there. Anything that I can say to them, say, hey, I can't do anything with Jasper County, but here is what we are doing and we are attempting to do. Because I get the same thing. The residents know that we have all this new building going on and there is going to be new revenue coming in. There may come a day where it's not possible to reduce a millage, but I'd like to stave that day off as far in the future as we possibly could.
so if that gives you any indication, and you know, you can ask John and Bo separately, you know, if you need if you need something, perhaps what you should do is prepare for the budget. You know, if we reduced 1 mil, what would have to come off if we did 2 or 3, 4, not that we'll go to 3 or 4. I don't know. I haven't talked to anybody about it, but at least show the council the result, what would happen if we made that decision.
We did that last year, didn't we?
Yeah, I think so. Remember last year, you know, I had said anyway that I would not object to any other thing as long as that millage came down. And and we did. And I think there was, from your proposal to to 97, because your proposal was 103. The tax revenue neutral was 98.25. And we reduced it for real tax relief to 97. So there was a $360,000 difference between your proposal and the 97. And then you came back and said, this is where we'll get it. What John's saying is, give us the same scenario. If we go to 96, what do we have to cut? If we go to 95, what do we have to cut?
And the traffic, reasonable taxing, you know, there's a balancing act and there's a story to be told there, and let's tell that story.
And I think we pretty much shot the last slide, but okay, so we've got this slide. Again, I think the council's done a great job of reading this slide for me. We've got Jasper County at 97 mils, and then Beaufort County at 109.2. FY23 or calendar year 23 is a reassessment year for Beaufort County. We have staff has been in contact with both the assessor for Beaufort County and Jasper County. Beaufort County anticipates it'll be another month or two before they have hard numbers, but such a small piece of what Hardeeville does is in Beaufort County. We feel like we're going to be able to account for that. We're actually holding that. We're projecting that that's going to be level since the assessments, the reassessments, revenue neutral anyway. And then, and again, that's the fourth bullet. And then the fifth bullet is the city projects a nominal change in the Beaufort County revenues. So, and then page 26 is the last slide. Was that clear? Okay. So we are planning to hand you the budget Next Thursday, April 6th, that is Holy Thursday. We're off on Friday, and so we will have the document to you Thursday afternoon, and we're looking to schedule the next workshop either somewhere in the time frame of April 11th to 21st, or May 2nd to 5th. My only ask would be, we give it to you on the 6th, and then we have a day off and everything. We don't have a chance to make many changes that you would like to see between now and the workshop. And then so if we could get your guidance on that, again, with the idea that our first reading would be May 18th and our second reading would be June 1st.
Well, Mike, you'll send us potential dates for this workshop?
Will.
Keeping in mind that we have other workshops that they're starting to stack up, like Plains at O'Hare. So there's a lot to fit in the next 2 months.
Yes, sir.
That's all we have.
That wasn't so painful now, was it, John?
Mike, what you're saying is these dates, 11 through 21 or whatever, is this kind of tentative because you don't know we might accomplish it in one workshop or we might accomplish it two. So I think last year we did it in one, didn't we?
Yes, sir. Yep. So if we do such an amazing job, that, again, we
That-
have one
That was
workshop,
with John giving us.
April 11th and April
this,
21st, we
this,
can get
this,
the
and
job
this.
done.
Yeah, for me, I think all of us said last year, you've put this budget in a way that's so easily understood that we're able to check off the boxes. Perhaps if the council can, each of us give some input, like for me, and I think I said this last year, I see, Chief Camp, do you want to leave and go to the men's room for a minute? Just kidding, Chief. But we've had separate conversations. We have invested a lot in the fire department, and as I said earlier today, we've been rewarded by the fire department because of that investment, and we're all proud of it. But when I look at the numbers, I say to myself, it's the police department's turn. I particularly think that we don't have enough money in the police department, and perhaps the way to find that money is to put the brakes on the fire department a little bit. So that, again, that's just something that in these slides that hit me besides the millage. Does anybody else from council have a hot button that they saw today that they want to give guidance so that they can prepare for the next workshop?
I would echo what you just said about the police department. I had a chance to talk with Sam a little bit after our last meeting, and I think there's some work to be done there, and let's do it and make sure that we do it now, because what we don't do now is only going to cost more in the future, and significantly more. I mean, so I just think there's more to be looked at there, and I agree with what Harry's saying. And we appreciate all the work that Steve's done, and we've made a good investment there with the emergency response vehicle. And I think, Sam, you're at the front of the line now, from my perspective.
I agree. I think to take a look at it to see I don't want to say to prioritize a certain sector of public safety, but maybe to balance a little bit with how we grow. If I may say something about the 11th through the 21st, the first couple of days, the 10th, 11th, or 12th, I would be available, but then I will be gone for a week after that. And then in May, I'm not returning until the 5th. If there would be any way that we would be able to do the 10th or 11th or 12th for the first one and the last week of April for the second one, I would be able to
Second
attend.
one last year, we did it once.
Well, let's do it in one again this year. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
That's why I'm asking, let's give them our hot buttons now so they can prepare. And if staff prepares properly, then they know what our concerns are, then we can perhaps get it done in one. Without looking at the budget, those are, millage and getting more into the police department are my two. And if you think of it tomorrow, send a note to Mr. Zimbler and say, this is a hot button, prepare for it, so we can move the process as quickly as possible.
My only hot button is added expenses on buying out the vehicle lease. If we have an idea of what the added staffing is gonna cost and the added equipment, it could make just a little bit of difference in possibility of reducing a millage.
John, anything from you, sir?
Well, kind of a crazy question, I guess, but do we have to, if we did buy out Enterprise, do we have to do it all at one time? Could we do it like in, say, 2 installments or something?
We haven't asked that question, but we've been operating under the assumption that, for lack of a better word, we said we wanted to buy these 5 out now, and then we wanted to come back in 6 months and buy another 5 out. That would be okay. But we've conceptually been looking at it as an all or nothing proposition.
Well,
I'm
and that,
assuming what you're
it's just,
suggesting
that's
is
something to
we'll
look
buy-
at, because it would be easier to swallow if we could do it and say half and half or something. It just make me feel easier, because
Rules been changed.
I want to, get all these other things, and I mean, we can still do it, but it'd make me feel a little bit easier if we could just,
That's a good
What
question.
the lack of performance was during this lease and what it has cost us, that's a negotiating tool when you approach them on the final cost of the lease. If you could save $150,000 on that expense right there, well, that's 2 mils.
there you go.
It's 2 mils.
That's exactly
Absolutely.
the point.
All right, thank you very much.
That would be a good thing, Mike.
Yes, sir. All right, appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Another reward. You got Robin from you?
We can cut anything, but don't cut the budget on Reese's peanut butter cups, okay?
No, right here is mine, right there.
That's where I draw the line.
The county budget stays.
Oh, okay.
Might be a slight increase.
Chocolate went up. Chocolate's more expensive.
All right. Any other questions or comments for staff before we adjourn? Being none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you, everyone. Good job.
Yeah.
Safe, Sean.